So let me state my biases up front that I'm a pretty big Zack Snyder fan. That said, I actually don't join the consensus that BVS is as strong or as good as Man of Steel or Justice League. I do think it's plagued with a lot of problems. And even Snyder's extended cut answers only a few of those worries. So now when we look at that paired to Matt Reeves' The Batman, I think BVS is still a little bit stronger, but I would agree. I was expecting to be very disappointed by this. I thought it was a lot of hype. The trailers didn't impress me, and overall, there are problems I had with Pattinson in terms of the voice. The costume still looks a little weird, looks a little bit like garbage, frankly, and he doesn't fit the physique usually of Batman. But overall, I did find this a very compelling. I thought this was a very compelling and very strong Batman story. Overall, it's very indebted to Long Halloween with Jeff Loeb, and at times the story does suffer a little bit from having too many callbacks, not just to the comics, but to the animated series and other versions of Batman. But still, I was pretty impressed. I found it mostly enjoyable. The riddles weren't that impressive. That's probably one of the major problems with the narrative, but on most levels, the cinematography, the sound, the music, the performances, all pretty much universal. Almost all of them were uniformly strong. There are a few complaints here and there because even though this is a 3 hour movie, there are still sort of gaps in the story. The way Batman just sort of instantly knows the answer to certain clues. I understand they move the plot along, but that felt a little bit false in too many places. Still, overall, we did get in most cases, we do get enough time with the various characters, major and minor, especially Falcone, Penguin, the Riddler, and how they're sort of interweaved with one another. But what is the story about? Well, essentially, they're using this kind of theme of corruption, which I know people are going to say immediately that's very retreading Nolan. But again, Nolan also took a lot of things from Jeff Loeb. So basically, they're just doing different aspects of the Long Halloween. The Long Halloween itself was centrally focused on Two-Face and explaining his origin. That's not the case with the Batman. The Batman is basically Batman has already been crime fighter for about a year. This is year two, and he's already becoming disillusioned because crime is not going down. In fact, in many ways, things are getting a little bit worse, and he's feeling that he's not doing anything. He's feeling hopeless and wondering why he's doing what he's doing. And here comes in the Riddler, essentially killing off these corrupt political figures, and he's doing so inspired by the Batman himself. And so he feels very twisted about how he approaches the Riddler. And to add to the mix, of course, is the Catwoman, who has her own agenda. If you read The Long Halloween, you'll kind of know what her relationship is to Falcone. I'm not going to spoil it here. It is a little bit of a shock twist, and I do think Matt Reeves does, for the most part, a good job of misdirection in terms of why Batman as well as Catwoman make various mistakes, why they think they're talking to Bruce Wayne when they're really talking to the Batman, and vice versa. There's actually a lot of good swapping of identities. So overall, mostly good, mostly strong, but there are a few bad points. One of them is that it's not just the Riddler's costume, but the Riddler, the way he does things, is very underexplained. He seems to have an incredible amount of resources, and when we finally figure out his lair and his entire outlook, some of it is very good, like him being an accountant, which is not much of a spoiler. So him understanding the finances and how people are being bribed, okay, that's fine. But him being physically as well as intellectually strong enough, kidnapping people consistently and nobody catches him, that felt a little weak, and that should have been done a little bit more smoothly. Maybe he had more help, maybe he had a kind of extra villain helping him, something like that. It just felt a little too smooth how he was able to do things. And I also found it really weird that Batman, as far as I remember, never uses the Bat computer. He has all these gadgets available, but he only uses them a few times. He uses the grappling hook here and there, he uses gas weapons here and there, but it's like he has a utility belt. He's a billionaire. He has a lot of tools at his disposal. He also doesn't seem to have the bat jet. Why not? No. It seems like he could afford androids, robotic help. That's not used. Seems a little strange. Why not use every resource? But I would say I thought I was going to be disappointed, however, with him and Alfred. I thought that was mostly solid, but again, They're retconning what happened with him and his father and mother, Thomas and Martha Wayne. I understand for the sake of the story they had to do it, but it just felt really way too quick. And I'm still not clear why Thomas Wayne worked with Falcone. Again, that's going to not be much of a spoiler because, as you find out very quickly, everyone in Gotham is corrupt. Pretty much only a few people are not uncorrupt. Only a few people are not corrupt in this version of the story. So overall, very strong story. I like most aspects, but there were some weak moments that I think legitimately bring down the score. I'm giving the Batman an 8 out of 10. Mostly very excellent, a very legitimate and interesting take on Batman. Nothing revolutionary if you read Frank Miller or seen the Nolan films or even the Tim Burton films. This dark version of Batman has been done before, but those things, yes, skipped over him being a detective. And this finally gives a very solid noir interpretation of Batman, which has sort of been missing from the other versions. So that's pretty strong onto itself. But there are a lot of very weak moments throughout the narrative that kind of make you question why certain things happen. It's not too bad, but they do kind of stick out once you see it. But overall, a very impressive job, and I would recommend seeing this.